Randy, we got a problem.
What?
They go.
Reality's here. He's trying to crash the party. Reality? Who let him in?
You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda like I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
That was totally wicked!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News on your morning time. What is this right now? Oh, we're right on time, buddy. Right on time. My watch is showing 9, just flipped into 9:01. That's Central Time. For those Eastern Standard folks, that'll be 10:01 your time. My name is Mr. Henry. David Sean Thompson sitting over there. My left, your right. Maybe he's flying in right yonder. Maybe it'll be over this. We don't know. We don't know. He's like a ninja, man. He's like a ninja. It is Friday. Give yourself a Friday round of applause. Made it through another week in 2020. That is no small feat for sure. October 16th on this Friday. How's everybody doing this morning? Look, we know that you all could be anywhere right now, but you in particular choose to be with us, and we love you for it. For anybody that's just stumbled upon this program for the very first time, as we seem to have a few more people doing this over the last couple of days here, this is called Real News. If you click the hashtag and you found us, we love you for it. Welcome to the party type thing. What we try and do here in this program is create a little digital family, which sounds weird, but we're trying something new here. We're trying to create a space where we can have calm, cordial dialogue, exchange of ideas, and maybe even possibly disagreements, so that when we do have disagreements, we're having disagreements amongst friends, family, and neighbors, and not disagreements amongst enemies. All right, this is vitally important for times like this. And in that vein, one of the things we do to start this program here called Real News, something called the Greatest Audience in the Nation Appreciation Segment. That's where we reach out to y'all and ask y'all, hey, what's going on in your life? What are you doing? What are you appreciative of? What do you need help with? What do you need prayer concerns for? Any of that type of stuff. You got small businesses that are trying to innovate during this time and stay alive. Bring them on to us. We'll bring them to the program. All these types of things. Throw that in the comments section. Let us know how you are. We'd love to know how you're doing. David Sean Thompson, though, buddy. How you been this morning, man? Everything good on your way?
Dude, so good, man. Here, hold on. There we go. So good. So good. And happy Friday, everybody. You made it. You made it. It's Friday, baby. It's going to be so big. We got the presidential town halls yesterday. Amy Coney Barrett stuff was happening. There's all kinds of things happening right now. It's powerful.
That's right, man. Headlines you see for today: presidential town halls, cognitive distortions of the left, and how to save America. And winter is coming for big tech. Those are literal words used by Senator Tom Cotton. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say that he said those words. He said winter is coming for big tech.
And he did it with dramatic flair.
Yeah, he did.
He did it with like a hard pause. Like it was on Maria Bartiromo, and she didn't even say anything for like 3 seconds. She was like,
whoa.
Man, hold on. Let me take my glasses off for this one. She's like, what does that even mean? And he's like, winter is coming.
Just know winter is coming. Oh man. Hey, by the way, realnewsradio.live, realnewsradio.live. That's the central landing page for all real news related things. You'll be able to find links to the Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. That's all the video related platforms you can see this on. You can find our Parler account, Twitter account, our Minds account, a whole bunch of other stuff if you want to follow us around here. One of the new segments we started in this program, aside from the op-ed royale, another one we have is real news, fake news. So I want to try to do this every single day. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it every single day, but at the bottom of the Facebook every day when you get in here, there's going to be a question. Is the following headline real or fake? You choose either real news or fake news. This one for today, here's the headline. Facebook bans the Babylon Bee for being too accurate. Facebook bans the Babylon Bee for being too accurate. And the responses so far are 100% in agreement. I'm not going to tell you on which side, but all of y'all agree this is either real news or fake news so far. And I think that's fantastic. Let me jump into the show here right now. We have a lot to get through. I'm going to gloss over some of this local stuff pretty quickly because it's primarily the national stories I want to get to today. Nevertheless, here's the first headline for the local stories. This is coming out of Nashville area, particularly pertaining to the East Nashville area. And I bring this up only because, well, some of this is implicated in ways that I didn't think it was going to be, but nevertheless, here we are. Green light given for Black Lives Matter street mural to be painted in East Nashville. It's a Fox 17 headline. Organizers who have been planning to paint a Black Lives Matter street mural in East Nashville were finally given the green light on Thursday, but there's still one condition. The Metro Arts Boards of Commissioners approved to have the mural temporarily painted on Woodlawn Avenue as long as it is privately funded. And frankly speaking, I don't know, man. I was going to say I don't have much of a problem with this, but I don't know. I'll put it this way. I at least don't have nearly as much of a problem with something like this going down as long as it's not taxpayer funded, okay? Because the problem I've always run into here is that if we're going to try and pretend like movements like Black Lives Matter are not political movements, yet they want to change policy, those things, there's too much incongruity there. It doesn't make sense for me. It shouldn't make sense for most people. It is quite clearly a political movement, one of which I would actually agree with most of the end outcomes on. Just don't agree the way that they're going out by doing it. And by that, I mean the movement itself, not the organization. Does that make sense? Nevertheless, they say you can have your mural as long as it's privately funded. Those behind the mural say it's been a self-funded project thanks to donations from community members. However, any grants that were applied for may halt the painting in the mural until the Metro Finance Board can release the funds. And as soon as I got into that portion of the article, I thought, oh, please don't let this next sentence be what I think it's going to be, man, because that is yet something else. I just don't want to deal with this spin. I don't want to deal with this spin. I know y'all don't want to deal with the spin, but here's the next sentence. Metro Arts.
No, let me have some fun with it. Let's play some real news, fake news, and guess what the next sentence is. Because those weird people who wanted to do the Taxpayer Protection Act didn't want to raise taxes, that's why we can't fund your mural. So
that's why you can't fund the mural. That's the story.
Or anything else that doesn't have anything to do with things that government shouldn't be doing anyway.
Exactly, man.
Not just this. It should be privately funded. Say I wanted a mural of who's that popcorn guy who made the moonshine, Dolly Parton, and I don't know, somebody else. It's what if I don't know, just some great East Tennessee people.
Yeah.
You know? Wouldn't it be weird if I asked Knox County to pay for it, or the state of Tennessee, or city of Knoxville? Wouldn't it make all the sense in the world for me to just ask permission? And then if I get permission,
go do it, man.
Then go do it because, whatever. Go raise the money,
Yeah.
Or anything I want to do. Why would I ask the government for money? Anything. Why wouldn't I just maybe need permission because I don't want to affect my neighbors in an adverse way?
No, exactly, man. And here's the sentence itself. It says Metro Arts, like other city departments, is under directive from Metro Finance to halt operational spending and contracts as we await the Chancery Court decision on the property tax referendum. So somehow inadvertently, this National Taxpayer Protection Act, by us trying to repeal the 34% property tax increase, has now somehow inadvertently affected this. And to be completely frank,
by choice, surely.
Yeah, man, it's a little bit disingenuous for Fox 17 to come out here and tell me that as long as it's privately funded, it can go ahead. And those that are doing the mural said that it's always been privately funded. But then to just sort of shoehorn this other angle in there about, well, they did apply for grants and they do need to wait to see if those grants come through because they can't come through right now because of this property tax thing. So the property tax thing is actually shutting down BLM. It's good, dude, for real? Seriously? Are you kidding me right now? Meanwhile, a guy like me, a guy like David Chum Thompson, who spearheaded some of these efforts, are the sole dudes up there in the Hill trying to fight for some of these injustices every single day. Seriously? Do you want to come interview us? We'll do an interview with you. I promise you we will. We will lay out from beginning to end our entire criminal justice reform package that both David and I worked on, the entire legislative session. So don't hit me with this nonsensical argument this early in the morning. I'm not ready for it, Sean.
Well, you know what, Grant? I'm going to take a little bit different spin on it because I don't live in Nashville and I'm not in the same position you are necessarily. This is great news.
Okay.
Hey, I don't mind being blamed for the government not paying for a BLM mural.
All right.
Because honestly, that's been my only problem with the BLM murals is that they've been government funded. Because, like as you said, it's hard to claim that they're not a political movement when they're asking for policy changes, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to go put Americans for Prosperity on some road in East Nashville. They're not going to put the Republican Party on some road out in Mount Juliet. You know, they're not going to put Democratic Party, a big sign that says the Democratic Party on the street in Memphis. That would be weird, right? Especially if the government paid for it. Especially if the government paid for it.
Yeah.
That would seem very odd to you. I'm trying to move the Overton window here so that you people don't look at this crap in a vacuum. That's a big problem we have right now. You got to look at things in context. So it would be weird if the government paid for a political movement to put a big mural in a neighborhood. That would be weird. And if what we did keeps government from doing weird things that they should not be doing because it's a bad idea, just like it would be a bad idea to put like Republican Party or Democratic Party on the street in front of the Capitol or something like that. That would be like insane. That would be insane. So it's that insane. It's literally the same. Okay. So like if we are making reality come back, that's like our original stated goal is bring reality back.
That's right. Yeah.
Because like we live in this world where people keep putting extreme situations in vacuums and then giving you false dichotomies, false correlations, and things to trick your brain into thinking they're normal. It's not normal for the government to put a political movement thing on a street and pay for it. That's not normal. So something we did brought reality back. Good for us. I feel great about it. And you know what, Fox 7, hey, there ain't no such thing as bad, what do you call it? Bad advertising. People are talking about you. You're doing the right thing.
Daniel just said in Facebook, by the way, I love Daniel, man. Daniel said in Facebook, don't give the Republicans any ideas. They'll definitely do that.
Okay, hey, look. Hey, okay, Daniel, to your point, I'm not giving them the ideas. The city of New York is.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
The city of Nashville is. Because if it's okay to put BLM on a street, Black Lives Matter on a street, and the government pay for it, then that means, according to the 14th Amendment, bro, it is okay for the Republican Party to do that. It is okay for the Democratic Party to do that. That's the implication. That's why I'm saying, let's bring reality back.
Hey, and Eric said on Facebook, I'm okay with the BLM mural, but can I paint a politicians are corrupt mural? Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. And he said those raise taxes will actually affect poor residents, which include poor black residents as well. All right, that's a great point. Eric has found the actual, the fantastic sort of, I mean, inconsistency or whatever you want to call it here. But what he's talking about is, okay, so the property tax increase is going to not disproportionately affect, it's going to affect everyone the same way across the board. But those that are going to feel it the worst are those that can least afford it, i.e. lower socioeconomic individuals. In the Antioch area, I think that would tend to be, you know, several African-American individuals. So what Eric is saying is if you're going to use and increase property tax funds to paint a BLM sign, it seems oddly controversial to do that with the funds that are going to harm the people that you're painting the sign supposedly to help. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. But what Eric's saying is that it doesn't make sense, right? Jessica just said bad publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Right, yeah. That's my feeling on stuff. There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Again, realnewsradio.live, realnewsradio.live. Shine, if you could follow me into the national stories section here. As Shine's pulling up this very first video here, I want to get to the presidential, town halls that happened last night, and then a few updates on the whole sort of winters coming for big tech. But one thing that really struck me from yesterday, and I think paints a somewhat of a disheartening image as to where we are right now as a country, is this exchange between Lindsey Graham and Dianne Feinstein. All right, so I talk about these cognitive distortions all the time. There's this book that I've been reading through for a while, and I finally finished.
Stay with me, Grant Henry. Stay with me. Looks like we lost Grant. So maybe we don't get the setup for this video. Maybe I just play it for you. Even though oh my goodness, it looks like our stream's reconnecting now. Man, can we not talk about... There we go. Grant, sorry, you disappeared for a second.
Oh, I did?
You did. And I think our stream is reconnecting. Maybe because we said BLM. Who knows anymore after yesterday? Who even knows?
Oh, well, that's sad.
But like, I think you can keep going now. So go ahead and start now, like it's a new video, and we're setting up that. So welcome back. Welcome to Real News.
Welcome back. How's it going? I never said anything. All right. So what I was just saying a second ago, this book that I've been reading through that I finished a little while back. It's called A Coddling of the American Mind. And this guy, Jonathan Haidt, he's the author. He goes through 9 different cognitive distortions, and several of which you've heard Shine and I talk about in this program before, right? It's emotional reasoning, catastrophizing, overgeneralizing, dichotomous thinking. We talk a lot about in this program. Mind reading, labeling. What this guy is getting to fairly often, he's basically making the point that several of these cognitive distortions, if not all of them, are actually diagnosable psychological problems. And it happens primarily with the left, but a lot on the right as well. He's trying to call balls and strikes, but he's basically drawing attention to the idea that college age Generation Z individuals that have just went through the university system are the ones that are primarily responsible for enacting a lot of these problems on the rest of society. And Sean, if you can, under that national story section, the first story here, Lindsey Graham, Dianne Feinstein praise each other. If you could pull that video up real quick.
It's ready to go. It's next to you.
Just play that video right now.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you. This has been one of the best set of hearings that I've participated in. And I want to thank you for your fairness and the opportunity of going back and forth. It leaves one with a lot of hopes, a lot of questions, and even some ideas, perhaps some good bipartisan legislation we can put together to make this great country even better. So thank you so much for your leadership.
Well, one, that means a lot to me, and I know we have very different views about the judge and whether we should be doing this or not. But having said all that, to my Democratic colleagues, you have challenged the judge, you've challenged us, and I accept those challenges as being sincere and not personal. I don't think anybody crossed the line with the judge in terms of trying to demean her as a person. To the people on my side, thank you very much for being involved and, telling our side of the story and asking the judge about your concerns. One thing we can tell you, as long as there's Senator Grassley, there'll be a question about ethanol. To Senator Feinstein, you're a joy to work with. To our staffs, I know this has been very hard, a lot of pressure on both sides. To the people who set up the room, thank you. To the witnesses who chose to participate today, as private citizens, thank you. To the police officers who made this go well, thank you. To my staff who bore the brunt of this, I really do thank you.
All right,
Star.
Real quick, Sean, can you pull up?
What the heck was that ad?
I don't know what that was, man. Real quick, dude. This next video is what apparently set leftist Twitters on fire yesterday. Play that next video real quick. It's the one right underneath that. Graham hugs Feinstein after the Barrett hearings wrap up. You may not even need to play the audio on it, but it's just this really sweet video. Look at this here.
Hold on. All right, there it is. You can talk about it. It's playing behind you.
All right. Yes, it's just this. I mean, look at this. It's just this really sweet video of. So you just heard how Feinstein praised Graham. Graham praised Feinstein. They praised their staffs afterwards. It was this really sweet conciliatory moment of, in the midst of 2020, y'all, in the midst of literal actual fires burning our country, a volatility like we haven't seen before, of an actual pandemic. I mean, of Hollywood script level catastrophe going on. This is a sense of beauty that comes out of this. This is a sense of commonality and humanity and actually, quite literally, physically reaching across the aisle. I mean, Feinstein even said at the end of this, I hope there's opportunities where we're going to have bipartisanship in the future and work on stuff, because I loved what we just did during the hearings here. Graham said, yeah, you guys asked Amy Coney Barrett legitimate hard questions. Yeah, there might have been a little bit of grandstanding, but that's fine. We kind of expect this stuff. It didn't, at least y'all didn't go Kavanaugh with it, okay? It's a beautiful moment. Yay. But alas, they had to go up in flames. I saw a meme floating around yesterday. This is what turned me on to this story, was this particular meme. And I was thinking, what are they talking about? The meme was, those things where it says this, such and such, also this. This meme was saying Dems, We need a president that will unite us and stop being so divisive. And then it said, also, Dims, Feinstein can't hug Graham. I disagree with him. We can't hug people we disagree with. And sure enough, that is exactly what happened yesterday. Leftist Twitter, or basically just leftist in general, went nuts over this story. They were absolute, palpable outrage over the fact that Dianne Feinstein would have the gall, the audacity to hug a Lindsey Graham. Democrats, liberals, this is The Hill covering this story right now. Democrat liberal activists and left-leaning pundits, many of whom were dismayed that Democrat senators didn't put up a tougher fight against President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, expressed outrage. Demand Justice, an advocacy group that staunchly opposed Trump's efforts to fill the judiciary and conservative nominees, was first out of the gate with a statement calling for Feinstein to resign. Let me go back one more time. A coddling of the American mind. This guy, Jonathan Haidt, he's a psychologist. He says we have cognitive distortions going on in this country. Diagnosable problems. Dichotomous thinking might be one of them. It's either or. It's A or B. It's only one or two. It's this or that. There is no middle ground. There's no such thing as nuance. Either Senator Feinstein is with us or she is the oppressor and she's got to go. This is what Demand Justice said. Quote, it's time for Senator Feinstein to step down from her leadership position on the Senate Judiciary Committee. If she won't, her colleagues need to intervene. This is Brian Fallon. He's the executive director of Demand Justice. He went on to say, if Senate Democrats are going to get their act together on the courts going forward, they cannot be led by someone who treats sunrise activists with contempt and Republican theft of a Supreme Court seat with kid gloves. If you're not with us, you gotta go. This is Demand Justice. This is the initial response right out of the gates. If you hug someone you disagree with, and if you do somehow even anything resembling your constitutional duty, and if you give a platform to a lady that graduated magna cum laude, an appellate court judge, 9 kids, 7 kids, however many kids she has, you got to go. If you hug a person that you disagree with, you got to go. Prominent voices respected on the left followed with their own stinging criticisms. This is coming from, a person named Norman Orstein. He's a resident scholar at the American Enterprise Institute and a contributing editor for Atlantic Magazine. He said, Dianne Feinstein praising Barrett and then inexplicably praising Graham is a clear sign that she should not remain as the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee. Again, let me remind you one more time. Justice Scalia was approved with a vote of 98-0. That guy was arguably one of the most controversial figures to ever sit on the bench, at least in my lifetime, for sure. 98-0. Ginsburg, she was approved, I think, with only 3 down votes. And yet this person says, like, no, hang on. It's inexplicable that you would praise Graham. If you don't give me Kavanaugh hearing again, it would be inexplicable that would be a good thing. And if you, God forbid, that you even praise this lady, there's no such thing as praising women in this society, not unless they agree with us. Well, if they agree with us, then yeah, they rise to the top. But if they disagree with us, you got to shove them down. John Lovett, he's the co-founder of Crooked Media. He said that she can say this about this ongoing travesty is another sad statement about how poorly represented we are by Dianne Feinstein. One Senator Democrat aide called the hug itself crazy, saying for her to make those kinds of statements and to embrace Graham was just bizarre and absurd to me. This isn't a progressive versus moderate issue. The intention was to spend this hearing period laying bare why Barrett is a problematic choice. And what she's really saying here is so if the intention was to spend this period laying bare why Barrett was a problematic choice, why can't I? You still have not proven the point why I can't hug the guy afterwards then. Like, there's a very major logical disconnect between your two premises. The syllogism does not follow. The
syllogism is you disagree, you must hate.
Exactly. Right.
That's the A plus B equals C. If you disagree, you must hate.
Right. And that's what that's.
It's not professional. It's personal.
Yeah. Exactly. And you want to know one more time why we push this motto? I know it gets like broken record for some of y'all watching this program, but it's about why we push this motto every single morning. About we have the calm, cordial dialogue and exchange and disagreements, and when we have disagreements amongst friends, it's because of this stuff. It's because of this stuff, because our literal leadership is out there doing the exact actual opposite of what we try and do in this program. And finally, Sean, just so I don't pick up the entire show with this here, if you could, the last link in this little section here that we have, the cognitive distortions, the author of this book, Jonathan Haidt, he was actually on Joe Rogan's podcast about a year ago when this book came out, The Coddling of the American Mind. And if you click on that YouTube link, it should automatically throw you right into 9 minutes and 20 seconds. And that's where I want to start, because Joe Rogan asked him the following question about this very issue. And Haidt's response is, well, just listen for yourself. Here we go.
Most countries. Do you think that this is this some sort of a trend that will eventually correct itself when these kids get out into the real world and then go through a whole generation of that, and then people realize the error of their ways and the disastrous results of having these unprepared or emotionally unprepared kids?
Yeah. No, I'm pretty confident that it will not correct itself. I think that once we understand it, I think there are a variety of things we can do to change it. But I think here's the way to understand it and why it's not going to change itself. So I'm a social psychologist is my main area. But I love all of the social sciences. I love thinking about complex systems, and systems composed of people are really different from systems composed of stars or neutrons or anything else. And so if you have a complex system composed of people, these people are primarily working to increase their prestige. So, I mean, once we have our needs for, food and things like that are set, we're always interacting in ways to make ourselves look good and to protect ourselves from being nailed, or accused of something. So we're always doing reputation management. Now, think about in any group what gives you prestige. And so if you look in a group of teenagers, you might have a group in which it's athletics. And so if that's how you get prestige, then all the kids are going to be working out and training and practicing. And that doesn't hurt anybody. That doesn't impose an external cost on anyone else. But you can have some really sick prestige economies. And so there's an ethnography about an indigenous population in the Philippines by Shelley Rizaldo is the anthropologist. I think it's called Knowledge and Passion, about the Alangud, which is a name for a tribe in the Philippines. And in this tribe, it's a head-hunting tribe. They find people and cut off their heads, not just for fun, for prestige. So in a lot of societies, you have a lot of male initiation. Boys have to do something to become a man. And if the thing you have to do to become a man is you have to cut off someone's head, okay, so that imposes rather a heavy cost on outsiders. All right, so this is a sick culture. This is not one where we can say, oh, well, that's just the way they do things. Okay, This has to stop. And ideally, they would cut off a stranger's head, like they find someone from another tribe or someone, from, a government agency, they'll just cut off his head. But if necessary, if there's a fight or if there's somebody within their larger community, that can also get you points. So this is a really sick culture. Now, call-out culture is not quite that bad, but it's the same logic, okay? So if you have a group of teenagers or college students who are all struggling for prestige, as we all are, and if you get a subculture in which the way you get prestige is by calling someone out, showing that they're racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, whatever it is, if you can catch them, you get the points. What you're doing here is you're imposing an external cost on others. And that's what makes you so insufferable, because you are playing your game, but I'm paying the cost of your game. And so that, I think, it's hard to, people aren't going to break out of that themselves. But once we understand what's happening, I think in a sense we can all come together and call out culture and say, stop imposing these costs on us.
But how are we going to reach those kids if professors are so terrified to speak out and to cause controversy in class, and no one wants to criticize them because if you do, you risk your job, you risk them organizing against you? I mean, how does this shift?
So I'm hopeful that we can shift it, because most people hate it. So even the people who do it recognize that they're always on eggshells. They can be next. There's the tendency of people in this culture to, as we say, they eat their own. They eventually turn on each other. And the mental health costs of it, I mean, there are a number of essays that have been written by people who sort of left that.
He goes on to talk about it. I just needed to get to that point in the video where he kind of posits a solution and says, this is not what he's kind of saying, I'm paraphrasing here, but what I'm hearing is this is not who we're designed to be. We're not designed to eat each other, man. This is not who we are as a species. Okay, there's something inherent, like ingrained in each one of us, that this is just patently, objectively wrong. It's false, and it causes fear in each one of us. This cannibalistic tendency to eat each other because you don't measure up to some weird sort of dichotomous goal that we put on each other, something like that, something that nobody else can attain, arguably other than Christ himself. Nobody's meant to push themselves towards that type of thing. And then when we start eating each other for it, it causes fear within you. And because of that fear, you react back on other people. And he's talking about this prestige society, man. And some people call it virtue signaling. Some people would call it LARPing. I don't care what you call it, but I think it's one of the best analogies I've heard so far. People are literally headhunting right now. Okay, they are headhunting, and then you wear that heads as like a badge of honor, in part to show other people of what you've done and get prestige out of that. But also with that prestige comes a slight sense of protection. I think that's one thing he misses. The more heads I have on my neck garb, so to speak, the less someone will come after me because I can show them, I don't know, man, look all the heads I've got. I know I sent that one tweet that one time in 2012, but come on, man. Since then, I've got 9 heads, okay? All right, I've got a lot of them. I've taken out a bunch of these folks. So I'm protected here. I think what he's saying is like eventually no one's going to be protected from this type of nonsense. And we have to figure out a way to start calling it back. Go ahead.
Well, hey, let me counterpoint one thing real quick. It's not anti-human because humans are doing it. And if you go back to there's many cultures. I'm not picking on any culture in particular, but like it's either scalps, heads, shrunken heads in the Haitian culture. Like all kinds of different cultures had ears, with Vikings, ears and noses. In European culture in the Middle Ages, that was the thing, or at least pre-Middle Ages culture. Ears and noses, many cultures, ears and noses, heads, whatever, eyes, whatever, feet. People did these kind of things. But what it is, it's reptile brain stuff. It's down to the stem. It's in your survival part of the brain. In a world where there's not enough resources, there's not enough shelter. People are constantly, it's a survival scarcity type. It's like the apex of survival scarcity type mindset. There's not enough stuff, so it's a good thing. It's a virtuous thing for someone to die because that means there's more stuff for everybody, right? And so it's not anti-human. What it is de-evolved human. Okay. And when you move into a world where you're not thinking it's scarcity all the time, because I'm trying to broaden this out. It's not so specific. Generally speaking, these folks who believe that the world's coming to an end because there's not enough resources are pushed into that survival mindset and further down their evolutionary rabbit hole, where I believe that the evolutionary apex is as long as everyone's producing value, there's enough. And the value comes from humans, not from the environment. It's about how much value a human can produce, not how much value there is in the environment. Because, someone who can solve a problem can make a desert into an oasis, right? You know what I'm saying? And seeing the world not through scarcity, but through abundance. There's just so much out there. If I can just figure out how to make it happen, that's a totally different, higher evolved. That's frontal cortex. It's why I make jokes all the time. I think you heard me when we were in Georgia. It's like I hate reptiles and I hate birds because they are archetypes for a de-evolved human psyche. Especially reptiles. Reptiles eat their kids. Reptiles don't raise their kids. Reptiles pray and spray. They don't, which means try to have as many babies as possible. You don't pair bond and help raise kids. It's reptile thinking. It's scarcity. It's all those different things all rolled into one, which is, and you can only find them way back in history or in like some little isolated tribe somewhere, because generally as a society, a worldwide society, we've moved on from that into thinking that, especially as materialism rose, it's like if we could just understand the world, there would be enough. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there too.
No, that's fantastic, man. That's a great way to put that. Actually, Jessica agreed with it. She said, I agree with Sean. That's a great way to explain it. She also said, Eric said, hey, Jamie, pull up that image from these. Say, Jamie, pull up that image from the entities. Jamie's the guy, like the producer dude on Joe Rogan's show that is always like, hey, Jamie, pull up that. Jamie's always, it's a memeable moment on Joe Rogan's podcast. Let's see. Eric said, just ask Brett Weinstein when he was at Evergreen College. Yeah, that's exactly true, right? He was devoured by them. Eric said, ask farmers near the end of the fall of communism is Russia. And then Mehdi said, headhunting is an extreme form of cancel culture. And then somebody's talking about ASMR in there. Oh, yeah.
It's because they said he had a really nice voice. They were talking about how great Jonathan's voice is. And just quick plug, you can go down a YouTube rabbit hole a mile long if you just type Jonathan Haidt's name in. He's done so many videos, there's some great, like he did some great talks at like universities that are like hour and a half long. They're all worth listening to.
I thought you were about to say you can go down a rabbit hole mile long with ASMR stuff, because that part is awesome.
No, Grant, I'm not gonna say it because like I can't hear whatever it is that like makes people feel good on ASMR because I'm deaf. So I don't understand that culture, except they make really soft noises and play with feathers and stuff like that, you know.
I think it stands for like auditory sensory meridian response or something like
that.
Maybe
You're still going down it. You're still.
But what Sean's talking about is that there's apparently like a third of the population that has this thing where certain audio signals can trigger sort of the warm, fuzzy feelings that sort of like, I don't know, tickling feeling going up the back of your spine or something like that. And people will devote hours of times to listen to these ASMR videos where people are just whispering on left and right sides of binaural microphones. It's weird stuff. It's strange stuff. But for a lot of people, it's super calming and helps a lot with depression and helps them put to sleep and a lot of other weird stuff. So I don't know, man. Don't go too far down that rabbit hole.
It's so beautiful. Yeah.
It can get real weird real fast, though. I'll be totally honest with you. So,
or you can just watch Jonathan Haidt videos and get smarter, you know? Like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You could like watch. He's really smart. You know, he's a big fan of Jordan Peterson. Great guy. And obviously Grant talks about his book all the time. It's super great.
Go with Sean's suggestion on this one is what I'll say. Hey, let's go into the other the national headlines here, son. Presidential town halls happened last night. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And I think one of the things that came out for me was that immediately there was one person in particular that's saying that, hey, this is the lady that stole the show. Actually, Shine tried to call me last night and tell me, hey, this lady is about to. This lady here is about to become the most known entity on the internet as of tomorrow. Do you have that clip pulled up real quick, Sean?
Yeah, and Twitter's doing this thing where I can't do the video and put it next to you, so we're gonna look at the whole thing here.
Yeah, do the whole thing, man. It doesn't matter. I'll just talk over top of it. Honestly, the entire night was just her doing this fantastic stuff behind it. If you go ahead and play the clip though, so you can see what she's reacting to.
You just keep talking, and because I want to talk about this woman, and then maybe we can talk about what Trump was saying. But you can see her. You can see my mouse. I'm pointing at her. Okay. So you just talk about it a little bit.
Anytime Trump would make a point that she agreed with about anything, it was this large, over-emphatic, like laden with mannerisms, like, yeah, I love it type thing. And the memes last night about it were just fantastic. Everybody was talking about it. Whoever on NBC hired that individual, they're put that individual back there for whatever optics sake. That person at NBC is probably fired tomorrow because it's like, who didn't do the vetting? This is a major Trump supporter. But the whole room were Trump supporters, though, right?
I watched the whole thing. I think it's indicative of the fact that they couldn't find people who didn't like Trump to attend the thing. I think it really shows the way Florida's going, by the way. I watched all the pre-coverage, too, and NBC had to admit that they really thought that Donald Trump had Florida in the bag because of Hispanics, bro. That's what the people on NBC were saying. They said in Miami, there's this hot thing where, like, screw socialism. That Cubans, Venezuelans, a whole bunch of other people are just, like, all for Trump because of socialism. But anyway, everybody in that room was pro-Trump. Even people, they were like, they're leaning by this one lady. They put this lady, and I know I'm jumping the shark here, and because that woman was indicative of the whole room. So that's why I'm moving on to the whole room. They put this woman in front of Trump and said, she's leaning Biden, she voted for Clinton, and she's got a question for you. And the first thing she said was, hi, Mr. President, you have such a beautiful smile. It was the most, and I was like, she's not leaning Biden. Are you kidding me? Way to be reaching there. So like every person, and then you watch the pictures. As soon as the thing was over, everyone crowded the president and tried to get pictures. They weren't socially distanced at all. It was hilarious for NBC to make it feel like they had mixed the room up. But everyone in there loved Trump, and obviously that woman in the background, she was there the whole time. It looked like a really beautiful African American woman. Just nodding the whole time. Like every time he was talking, and then giving him crazy thumbs up. And it gave the impression, like the subconscious impression, that he was winning the room. Which he was, but like she could have been the only person nodding, but it would still give him that impression, which really, like, I don't know, from the viewer, like I'm the viewer, it just made you feel like he was nailing the event the whole time. Which it was not the case. I went back and watched the Biden. I watched Trump live and then I watched the Biden. Biden had to answer some tough questions, but we'll get to that later.
Actually. Yeah, and Sean, actually, if you could, man, just because some of the analysis Sean gave right before the program, I think is dead on right. There's a video down here, Sean, that says Trump denounces white supremacy, sidesteps question on QAnon, QAnon, however you want to call it, or just Q. Pull up that video if you can. It's about 2 to 3 minutes long. But Sean gave some commentary in the back end of this, responding to basically the entire right's response to the individual that was, what's her name, man? Savannah, I think.
Savannah Guthrie.
Yeah, so the entire right had a response to Savannah, and I think Sean's commentary in the back end of this was probably pretty great. But it's important to set up one of the more contentious exchanges that happened last night pertaining to this question of white supremacy. And yeah, go ahead whenever you got that pulled up, Sean.
I'm almost there. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries, man. No worries. But I think,
all right, here it is. I got it.
Yeah.
Supposed to, as mentioned, be watching you on a debate stage right now. We're not doing that, so let's clear up a few things from the last one. You were asked point blank to denounce white supremacy. In the moment, you didn't. You asked some follow-up questions. Who specifically? A couple of days later, on a different show, you denounced white supremacy.
No,
my question to you is,
you've done this to me and everybody.
Why does it seem like
I denounce white supremacy? Okay,
you did 2 days later.
I denounced white supremacy for years, but you always do it. You always start off with a question. You didn't ask Joe Biden whether or not he denounces Antifa. I watched him on the same basic show with Lester Holt. And he was asking questions like Biden was a child.
Well, so this is a little bit of a dodge.
Are you listening? I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
What's your next question?
Do you feel, it feels sometimes you're hesitant to do so, like you wait a beat.
Here we go again. Every time, in fact, my people came, I'm sure they'll ask you the white supremacy question. I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
And frankly, you want to know something? I denounce Antifa, and I denounce these people on the left that are burning down our cities that are run by Democrats who don't know what they're doing.
While we're denouncing, let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true and that disavow QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is a satanic cult run by the deep state.
Study the subject. I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left, and I know how violent they are and how vicious they are, and I know how they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by Republicans.
Republican Senator Ben Sass said, quote, QAnon is nuts, and real leaders call conspiracy theories conspiracy theories. Why not just say it's crazy and not true?
He may be right. I just don't know about QAnon.
You do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Let me ask you another thing.
Let's waste a whole show. You start off with white supremacy. I denounce it. You start off with something else. Let's go. Keep asking me these questions.
I do have one more in this vein.
Let me just tell you, what I do hear about it is they are very strongly against pedophilia. And I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree with it very strongly.
But there's not a satanic pedophile
I have no idea. I know nothing about that.
You don't know that? Okay.
No, I don't know that.
Neither
do you know that.
Okay, just this week you retweeted.
Why aren't you asking me about Antifa? Why aren't you asking me about the radical left?
Because you're
volunteering.
Why
aren't you asking Joe Biden questions about why doesn't he condemn Antifa? Why does he say it doesn't exist?
Because you're here before me.
No, that's so cute. Antifa exists. They're vicious, they're violent, they kill people, and they're burning down our cities. And they happen to be radical left.
Hey, NBC News viewers.
Right. Shut up, Lester.
But look, Sean and I were talking beforehand, and we were actually going over the standard response that I was hearing from Twitter and my buddies on the right, my parents, and a few others about how, not insufferable, that's a strong word, but just how antagonizing Savannah was, and how it was just like it felt like it was a full-on debate as opposed to a town hall. The questions, if meant to be antagonizing or caustic or hard at all, it was meant to come from the audience, i.e. town hall, not from the moderator, right? And it was a similar version and vein of like the Christopher Wallace type episode, but Shine, I think, had a much better take on this whole thing.
Thanks for the awesome setup. But I was still drinking my coffee, so I don't really remember what I said. Could you kind of tee me up a little better here?
Yeah,
Sorry. Here, I'll even get on camera and be embarrassed a little bit that I don't remember what I said.
But that he needs someone to fight against. That he's only at his best,
yeah.
right?
I said, man, Savannah. Yeah, totally. You are a genius, Grant. Thanks for reminding me. You're a genius. I was like, the fact that Savannah Guthrie came right in with contentious issues right at the beginning, and I know why they did that. She wanted to make sure she controlled, or NBC maybe wanted to make sure they controlled what the news was going to be the next day. So he talks about white supremacy and QAnon, and nothing to do with running the country. Doesn't talk about, the news is not going to be about economy or military or peace deals or any of that stuff. Or even COVID, for God's sake. It's about that. And you'll see today that's what a lot of news stories are about. But visually, for the millions of people who watched that last night, Trump does so much better with someone to fight. So much better. So the fact that she was contentious, and I think I can tell from the comments you would agree with me, like annoying, like we're not stupid Americans. We want to hear about like stuff that the president can do. Not stuff that the president would say or has said. We don't care. It's 3 weeks from election. So even we're getting angry with Trump while we're watching. And then he like mocks or makes fun. It was such a better program. And I think it sharpened him up for the whole rest of it, where he didn't gaffe or mess up on any question. In fact, I thought every question was fantastic. I've never tweeted at the president post debate anytime ever in 2016 ever, and I tweeted at the president last night and said, "Good job, Mr. President," and not like in a partisan type way. It was more like as a political commentator, like that was a good job. He did a really good job, and I think that Savannah, despite too much to her chagrin, set him up for success. And even though I don't want to give a television host any credit, whoever the producers were, they set him up for success, because people like Savannah Guthrie are readers. Yeah, right. They're readers, they're listeners, they're not thinkers. Have you ever seen these people try to do live television without a teleprompter? It is painful. They could not do what we're doing right now. They're so terrible at it. But anyway, Savannah being someone to fight really helped him. And here's another thing. When the folks came out to ask him questions, she would jump right in the middle of their conversation. Right in the middle of it, constantly, and try to fact check Trump or ask follow-up questions. And I think it made his answers better. And it was more thrilling television, to be perfectly honest.
Exactly. Right.
It made it something really nice to watch. It made sense. There was a narrative here. She made herself the bad guy.
And honestly, bro, that was the best point that you made when we were talking about this before, because I said honestly, because if I'm being completely honest, what's really going to win this election is just how many people show up to the polls. And some people are going to show up to these polls just because they paid attention the night before, right? So if people are watching this stuff the following day, and there's some of these salacious clips. Look what President Trump did. Yeah, well, it's entertaining, wasn't it? And the reason why it was entertaining is now it's floating around YouTube. We're playing clips of it on this program. I'm not playing the clips from Joe Biden this morning. We're going to talk about it here in just a second, I suppose. But the point that Sean's making is like, I mean, it's Trump is an entertaining individual, and through that entertainment, he gets you to pay attention to politics. Okay, he sells it to you as he's sold any other product throughout his entire life. All right, I'm not trying to boast too much about him here, but that's exactly what he does. And when he was entertaining last night, he caused people to pay attention. Hitting some of these Facebook comments before we move on to the final topic of today here. Mehdi said, Biden is in the midst of a major corruption controversy, receiving softballs while Trump is being asked about QAnon. Are you serious, NBC? That's a good point. It's a very good point. I mean, we're in the midst of one of the major leaks of the October surprise, moment going on here. And over on the other channel, Biden's fielding some softball questions. Now, he did get asked a few questions. We're going to go over in a second about the 94 crime bill and a few other things like that. But the softball questions he's talking about were like, nobody asked him about the actual controversy that we wanted him to address. That's what Mifty's making a point on, is the one thing, the sole thing that you really wish you would have heard Biden respond to yesterday is the one thing that he clearly was not asked. Eric said, he won't deny that Dems are ran by satanic pedophiles because maybe, question mark, he says that's rich. I think those questions really backfired. Let's see here. And then Jessica actually did say at least he denounced a lot of other things. QAnon is pretty loony. Well, I mean, but yeah, for sure. On any version of fringe extreme right or fringe extreme left, when you get to the outer edges of this stuff, it's a little bit weird.
So my question for you.
And QAnon in particular, if you guys don't follow this stuff, I don't think I need to go into too much detail with it, but it's the idea, in the general idea, is that there is information being disseminated to a select few folks that follow the Q people. They're getting this information from national intelligence, literally from like DNI directors or something. And the sole purpose is primarily to take down pedophile rings. Like that's the main deal of what they think this administration is charged of. And I'll say, coincidentally enough, and I use that word very importantly, coincidence, I believe is what's happening, but coincidentally enough, President Trump has been responsible for taking down more pedophiles than arguably the two other previous administrations combined. I believe the statistic is something like in the first 8 months of his presidency, he prosecuted more pedophiles than the previous 8 years of Obama's presidency. So, look, however you find the goose with that egg at the end, whether it's the chicken that came first before it, I don't really care. So, some of what they're
I'll go ahead and denounce QAnon for President Trump.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that it's like a dumb game.
Yeah,
like,
it is. Right?
People get emails with like weird sentences that don't make any sense, and there's symbols on them and stuff. And then people tell some weird. Then they're like Indiana Jones style. They're like, this is from blah 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 blah, and this means that, and therefore we. It's really dumb. You could just watch Alex Jones. It's a little more entertaining. But I'll denounce QAnon just for being like way too confusing and not making any sense. But give them praise for being anti-pedophilia. And if you have to come up with some crazy mythos in order to get people involved in that, that's your cup of tea, and I'm not necessarily mad about it, but I'm not in your club. So I'll denounce you for being overly confusing.
And I'll say this much, okay? I don't lend any credence at all, not even a sliver or a hint or a whiff of it to anything the Q does. And most importantly, the end result for Q is to instill martial law and prosecute a bunch of elected officials through Guantanamo Bay. So that is nuts. That is absolutely outrageous.
I don't care how much you don't like people, that's going to cause some trouble. But
that's going to cause some trouble.
I'm going to have some fun real quick.
Yeah.
And do a meanwhile at the Biden town hall. And I'm not even going to show Joe Biden's response because it's not even worth hearing. But this happened. If you didn't see this, you probably need to go back and watch it.
So my question for you then is, besides you ain't black, what do you have to say to young black voters who see voting for you as further participation in a system that continually fails to protect them?
So meanwhile, at the Biden town hall, those were the kind of questions he was getting. Not, Mr. President, I love your smile. Oh. Like he had, and honestly, like Joe Biden, like he actually had a pretty good answer. I mean, he definitely took his drugs before that thing last night. He was very lucid, and he had a great response. It was like everyone has dignity, and he had to answer, weirdly enough, not Donald Trump. Joe Biden had to answer a lot of questions on race. I think there were like 3 questions specifically, like racially, whatever. And what was good, I think, for African-American voters in the Joe Biden, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, Grant. I know you had like this whole thing set up. I always do this every time. I just jump from thing to thing. Yeah. But for African-American voters, you really got to see Joe Biden lay out his plan the way Trump has laid out the Platinum Plan.
Yeah.
So you really got to compare and contrast.
Good reference, right? Because that's really what he had to respond to. Yeah.
Correct. So he got, but it really focused more on education. It didn't involve, helping people start businesses and stuff. So you can look at those two things as an African American voter and say, and compare and contrast, which Joe Biden has not been super good at telling us what he would do if he ran for president. He's actually said you don't deserve to know. So the fact that he actually answered those questions, good on him. He also apologized or whatever, at least walked back that the 92 crime bill was a good thing. He said it was a bad thing. And I got to give him credit. You don't see politicians in their 80s say they made mistakes 30 years ago. He's not in his 80s. I'm sorry. He's like 78, something like that, 76. But anyway, whatever. You get the point. You don't get people saying they made mistakes 30 years ago very often, especially on racially charged issues, things like that. So good for him. It happened. But he also had to admit that he had something to do with the 92 crime bill.
Well, yeah, they asked him straight up, okay, your support of this crime bill, it led to, I mean, goodness gracious, and sort of, not even sort of, an exponential rise in incarceration, primarily disproportionately affecting marginalized minorities.
Yeah, okay? and ones with addictions too, which is even worse. Man. Yeah, like people who, not the sellers, the takers, you know?
And as Shine's saying, to his credit, he did actually say that, yeah, there was a lot of things that were wrong. And they asked him at the very end, if you had to do it over again, would you have supported that 94 crime bill? And he said, no. And he went on to respond in that exact that question where he said, like, I think we should legalize some drugs now, talking about marijuana in particular. He says, I think instead of sending drug users to jail, which really doesn't do anything as far as rehabilitation is concerned, they should send them to mandatory rehab. Now, the term mandatory rehab doesn't sound all that different to some people than mandatory incarceration. But nevertheless, it's at least a different tack than was taken in 94. And to Shine's point as well, it's a major thing to have a seasoned politician of 40-something years, going on 50-something years, to say, one of my hallmark pieces of legislation, I recant. That is massive. Now, granted, of course, by exchange of political capital is concerned, he's trying to do it to win a presidency. But nevertheless, it's still something absolutely massive, right?
Can I do one more comment on the contrast between the town halls?
Yeah.
I think Biden had a tougher town hall because he hasn't done a good job telling voters where he's at on stuff.
And he tried to for the first time last night.
And he tried to for the first time last night, and that's why there were some awkward moments. I mean, is there anything more awkward than like a 25-year-old African-American male saying, besides not being black, is there anything else you want to say? And I don't even think they had the whole question. The beginning of that question was, there's a lot of my friends that are African-American under 30 who are not going to vote for you. They're not going to vote for Trump, but they may not vote at all, which is very common for people under 30. Generally speaking, not just African-Americans, everyone under 30. It's very, very common. And they said, so besides you're not black, what would you say to those people who are just feeling like staying home? That's a tough place to be. And it's because he hasn't done enough interviews. It's because Lester Holt or Savannah Guthrie or any of these people has asked him that question.
Yeah.
Whereas Trump gets beat up all the time and has to answer. There was nothing surprising. There was no news. I guess the only news that came out was, like, he said that he might have had some fluid in his lungs last night while he had COVID. That was like the only news that was made, and it's not because people didn't get to the heart of what Trump's going to be doing over the next 4 years. It's because he's been talking about it, and so that's why I believe Biden had a more awkward town hall, but a more informative Biden experience than we've had since he had a debate or town hall when he ran against Hillary Clinton. Because we didn't get anything in the Democratic debates either, because he's gone against everything he said that he would do in the Democratic debates this year, like fracking. He said he would definitely get rid of fracking, and then Kamala Harris 2 weeks ago said that they're definitely not going to get rid of fracking. So we got some more information than we had before, but that's why I think it was tougher for Biden than it was for Trump.
Jessica said in Facebook, it's going to be like rehabs they already have and the halfway houses with little to no education on how to reenter society and be a valued part of it. That's absolutely correct, I think, Jessica, and that's where I would advocate for C3 organizations, nonprofits, otherwise, to come in, help fill that gap. There's some fantastic organizations that we've actually been working with. AFP has been working with hand in hand in the Nashville area and several other areas as well that do just that thing. So when we talk about criminal justice reform, Jessica's dead on right. It's that overall comprehensive package that needs to be done, not just government. Government is even barely part of the problem. Barely. They're the ones that create, let me rephrase that. Government is the one that's creating the problem most of the time, but they're rarely the one that actually posits the actual solution. They just get rid of creating the problem, and then somebody else has to pick up all the trash. Nevertheless, it's an overall encompassing thing. Eric says that, well, that makes sense because Biden has a much thicker record showing his racism compared to other people accused of being racist. But again, my assumption is that Biden is just the figurehead to catapult Kamala into the Oval Office. He says, by the way, those laws haven't changed very much at all. He says, you guys just got CAF laws changed recently. And that's a valid point as well. You know, when he's saying that, like, yeah, I regret the 94 crime bill. Well, you know, I guess it's comfortable to do that now because, goodness gracious, man, it's taken since about 94 for some of these things to change around.
Did you see Daniel Snowden's latest comment there? He said, to be fair, Biden has no idea what Kamala Harris is going to do as president.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's true too, man. Honestly, he doesn't know what her role is going to be. He only knows that his role is to try and catapult.
No. What he's saying is he doesn't know what Kamala is going to do when she takes the job from him.
Oh, gotcha.
Grant, as the vice president, as president.
That's what I meant too, though. Like, I think the only thing that Biden's being informed of right now is like, hey, just do this and say this so that Kamala's going to get there. I mean, we're not going to tell you what Kamala's going to do with your legacy afterwards. We're just going to tell you that your role is to at least get her here right now. Because again, man, he openly professes on several occasions, I'm running with someone that's ready to be president on day one. I don't believe these are gaffes because he said it too many times in a row. I think he genuinely believes that, man. And I don't think he's setting himself up for a 25th Amendment claim here. I think he's just saying, like, I'm 78. If you guys expect me to be here 8 years, it's probably not going to happen. Not on this earth. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just in this office or whatever. Shine, it is 10 on the way out. Do you want to at least play the Tom Cotton Winter's Coming clip? Do you want to play Senator Cruz thing?
All day. I love it.
I think it's too important because it's too major of a reaction, that story yesterday. It's down below there. You'll see it. It's a section unto itself. Continuing Twitter, Facebook, Section 230 saga. Let me set this up while Shine is finding this video. So the reaction yesterday was, well, it's exactly what you would expect it to be, or what I would have hoped it would be, okay? Sort of, kind of, a little bit. I don't know who on the Republican Party is going to try and temper their response a little bit, and I'm starting to think that maybe the response shouldn't be tempered, but I'm still going to grasp on with every fiber of my libertarian being that we probably shouldn't do anything to Twitter or Facebook at all. And I know I'm going to be in the minority in this, and I know I'm going to be screaming in the minority win on this, but it doesn't necessarily matter. To me, I just think you should let these people die. The Facebook and Twitters, just let them die off. I don't care how terrible their product is. At this point, I don't care what they're actually trying to affect. I get it. I understand they have too much control and too much power. But at the same time, man, I'm just saying that's where I got to stick at this point. I just think let him create a terrible product. Let him die off. Cruz, Graham, Hawley, Cotton, they're going the other way in this, though, man. Cotton has declared war, saying winter is coming. Section 230 should not just no longer be applicable to you. It's done. You're out of here, man. You got too much power. And frankly speaking, I may be going out a little bit on a limb here, but I'm really thinking what's actually happening here without being said is this is kind of government saying, do y'all not realize who actually has the power here? I mean, big tech, I know you got some power, but you don't have law enforcement, okay? You don't have law on your side. You want to play this game with me? I mean, do you really want to play this game? Because we've been playing this game for a very long time, and we have the stuff on our side. And you know what I mean by stuff, all right? If you really want to play that game, we'll play it with you. I mean, we'll do it. But let's see what that outcome is going to be like. Play Tom Cotton for us, though, Sean, if you want to.
But as you point out, look at the behavior of the big tech oligarchs who want to control the Biden administration. They immediately censored this information on Twitter and on Facebook. They locked down the Twitter account of the New York Post, a venerable and major American newspaper. They locked Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, out of her Twitter account. The big tech oligarchs have declared war on the Republican Party and conservatives, and I promise them, those in Silicon Valley, winter is coming.
Oh! And then look at this stare.
Tell me about
look
that.
At that. Maria Bartiromo didn't even know what to do.
That?
I don't even want to hear Maria. I don't even want to hear his answer on what does he mean by that, because we all know, right? Probably nothing. Probably nothing. You know, because they haven't done anything at all. They could have done so many things. Even the wasn't FEC. It was FCC came out and clarified 230 yesterday, but they could have done that 4 years ago. They could have done it 2 years ago. I'm with the FCC chairman, Grant, that they should have the same status as a news company or a newspaper. Okay. That's what the FCC came out and said yesterday, that you know, if the actual company like Facebook or Twitter defames somebody, they should be able to be sued. You know, not the users. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? We can't hold the users we can't hold the Facebook and Twitter accountable for the users, but we can hold them accountable for their actions in civil court. You know, in civil court, that's how you solve problems without having to make law.
Yeah, and this is what Shine's talking about right here. There's a New York Post headline. There's a couple other. FCC moves to clarify Section 230 law following censoring of the Post story. Federal Communications Commissioner Chairman Ajit Pai on Thursday sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley as he announced plans to, quote, clarify the meaning of a law that protects tech giants from being held responsible for content posted by their users. And this is important for several reasons, not least of which is the fact that when he talks about clarifying a law, it means it's going to be enforceable somehow. It means that whatever Section 230 used to mean prior to today is probably going to change tomorrow. And again, I think what Shine is saying here is the same thing that Clarence Thomas said 2 or 3 days ago, specifically pertaining to Section 230. Clarence Thomas says, I think it's been too broadly applied. I think it just means anything, whatever you want it to mean. I think it basically means that Facebook and Twitter could do whatever they want to and still be considered platforms as opposed to publishers. But Clarence Thomas says, look, man, if you, Twitter, are responsible, you, the company, just like Shine said, if the company itself is responsible for what is being curated on your site, well, then you then are the publisher. You then are responsible for that type of stuff. And you should not have immunity that Section 230 would give you. If, however, you are just a platform, and the person that is responsible for putting that information out there is myself or Shine through our individual posts, well, then I can't hold you responsible for what 3 billion people are doing on your website, can I? I think that's what this is basically coming down to. And moreover, I think that Graham, Cruz, Hawley, they all had a press conference yesterday too, saying the exact same thing, like this is just getting too much. Yeah, go ahead and play a little bit of that clip if you want to.
In the last 2 days, we've seen a remarkable development. We have seen big tech, we've seen Twitter and Facebook actively interfering in this election in a way that has no precedent in the history of our country. Yesterday, the New York Post broke a story alleging serious corruption of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden concerning Ukraine. The allegations in the New York Post story, if true, indicate that Vice President Biden lied when he said he had never discussed his son's business dealings. That story, once the New York Post broke it, was blocked by Twitter and Facebook. Anyone who attempted to share it was prevented from sharing it on Twitter or Facebook. The New York Post itself, when it attempted to put out its story, was blocked on Twitter and Facebook. The New York Post has the 4th largest circulation of any newspaper in this country. Never before have we seen active censorship of a major press publication with serious allegations of corruption of one of the 2 candidates for president. That was last night. This morning, the story escalated and got even worse. The New York Post broke a second story of a series of emails that indicate yet more corruption, in this instance, the Biden family receiving millions of dollars from communist China government officials. Just minutes ago, I tried to share that story on Twitter, and Twitter is actively blocking right now, this instant, stories from the New York Post alleging corruption and the Biden family receiving millions of dollars from communist China. This is election interference, and we are 19 days out from an election. It has no precedent in the history of democracy. The Senate Judiciary Committee wants to know what the hell is going on. Chairman Lindsey Graham and I have discussed this at length, and the committee today will be noticing a markup on Tuesday to issue a subpoena to Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee next Friday, to come before this committee and the American people and explain why Twitter is abusing their corporate power to silence the press and to cover up allegations of corruption. And let me be clear, I don't know if these New York Post stories are true or not. Those are questions Vice President Biden should answer But Twitter and Facebook and big tech billionaires don't get to censor political speech and actively interfere in the election. That's what they're doing right now. And so on Tuesday, the Judiciary Committee, the full committee, will be voting on subpoenas to subpoena Jack Dorsey to come before our committee.
Can I ask you a technical question?
And honestly, I mean, I guess we could fast forward to Josh Hawley if you wanted to, Grant. But Graham's basically saying, hey, I agree with him. I'd like to play Hawley here.
I want to say that obviously I agree wholeheartedly with the chairman, Senator Cruz. I think taking this action is absolutely necessary. Yet last night, the subcommittee, my subcommittee on crime and terrorism, invited both Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg to come and testify.
Just hold that in your mind for a second. The head of the subcommittee on crime and terrorism has invited, because he has his own committee. Cruz is the major committee, right, Grant? They're the judiciary committee. Then he's the head of a subcommittee on crime and terrorism.
I think a subpoena from the Judiciary Committee is absolutely appropriate and in order. It is absolutely vital. We believe in a free press in this country. We also believe in free elections, and the attempt to rig an election, which is what we are seeing here by monopolies, is unprecedented in American history. They have a lot to answer for, and I hope that we'll subpoena both Twitter and Facebook. They should both come. They're both engaged in censorship. They're both massive monopolies. They should answer to the Judiciary Committee. They should answer to the full Senate. They should answer to the American people, and that's what this is about, and I look forward to taking this vote.
And honestly, it's just a little more, junk after that. But I do want to say, Grant, Hawley has already sent the subpoenas for his committee. They are out to Jack Dorsey and to Mark Zuckerberg, and I think it's poignant that the Committee on Crime and Terrorism is going to be talking to them. I think the focus in that is going to be to see if there's any intersection point between China. Because I think that what you'll see later on this week, from what I've heard, is that a Chinese communist, what do you call him, an intelligence agent, had dealings with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden in order to build this blackmail thing. And if Twitter is getting any pressure from any foreign nations like China to squash this story, I think they're going to be pursuing the intersection of the blocking of this story and the allegations in the story, and see if Twitter or Facebook is a part of any of that intersection. And, obviously something like that would not be figured out before the election. But this bodes very badly for Joe and especially Hunter Biden if Donald Trump wins and if the Republicans control the Senate. I mean, really bad. And anyone else who would be involved, because it would be more likely that they would go to jail and not the Bidens.
So on Thursday night, last night, Twitter, NPR is actually reporting on Twitter's response. Twitter's legal team, Policy and Trust Safety led, they announced the following, quote, "We will no longer remove hacked content unless it is directly shared by hackers or those acting in concert with them." And quote, "All the other Twitter rules will still apply to the posting or linking of hacked material, such as our rules against posting private information, synthetic and manipulated media, and non-consensual nudity." I think Twitter got wind of what some of these senators were talking about. I think Twitter got wind, and Jack called down and said, "What have y'all done? Do you seriously realize what you just did to me?" I have nothing to substantiate this, but some part of my being wants to think that a few of these folks just went rogue and didn't call the higher ups. Like, I'm just cutting this out. I have the institutional capacity and in the hierarchy of this company to make this call right now. I'm going to do it without seeking Jack's approval, without seeking anybody else's approval. And they just went and swung for the fences, man. And now Jack's got to play cleanup afterwards because their bias is on full display. I mean, it is undeniable right now. And anyone that would deny it is operating in a world of pure fabrication or outright utter delusion. So Twitter comes back and responds to this thing like, okay, fine. You're correct. Within our own terms and services, we're not going to remove hacked material anymore, because there's another situation going around last night that Twitter had no problem spreading around a bunch of audio recordings that leaked out from the First Lady, none of which she consented to, or so I've heard. And maybe if she didn't consent to it, doesn't matter. Maybe Maryland or D.C. is a one-party consent state, or maybe she did consent to them. She just didn't consent to them
Their
being spread
policy
around.
doesn't say hacked as long as it's legally hacked in a state, right? There's two updates to what you're saying. The lawyer who was on with Jack and Tim Pool in the social media discussion, she tweeted yesterday that they're going to have to change the policy.
Oh, jeez, really?
Because they're obviously not applying it correctly. And then the other update is Rudy Giuliani. You want to have some fun? Go watch the Steven Crowder stream last night where Rudy Giuliani, Steven Crowder doing the real journalism, went to Rudy Giuliani and had Giuliani on his show, and Giuliani held the laptop. He's like, "This is the laptop with all of Hunter Biden's crap on it." And then they said, "Well, how'd you get it?" It wasn't hacked, Grant. This is the story anyway. The story is that he took it to a repair shop. He left it there so long that under New York state law, it became the merchant's property.
Yeah.
So like literally nothing was stolen. It was forfeited property. And then he started seeing things in the news, noticed that that laptop had a sticker on it that said Hunter Biden, because, the guy's just a repairman. He's not thinking about that stuff. He opens it up. There's all these salacious pictures, which I don't think are really fair game, to be honest.
I agree.
The womenizing, the drug stuff, it's like if he has a problem, he has a problem. But that has nothing to do with Joe Biden, personally.
100%, yeah.
That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah,
because it's really cheap.
No, it is. Yeah.
But there are pictures with like, communist Chinese officials.
Yeah.
There's things that contradict certain narratives on there. So he looked it up and called the FBI and said, "I think I have criminal material here and I don't want to have it anymore. Would you have it?" And then he also copied the hard drive and gave it to, I think he copied the hard drive and gave it to the FBI, and then he gave Giuliani the laptop.
Yeah.
And then Giuliani said that, and he made a really great point. If the Biden and he also said, and this is not confirmed by anyone else, but Giuliani saying it, he said that the Biden campaign, when they found out about this, reached out to the merchant and asked for the laptop. Not the campaign, lawyers reached out and asked for the laptop. But those are all updates. It's like, why isn't the media doing their job? It's like, I just pulled things from random places here. Like, why hasn't anyone gone and talked to Giuliani? Why hasn't NBC or ABC or the New York Times said, Giuliani, at least get on the record? Even if he's lying or whatever, you want to get on the record what he says, how he got it. But anyway, sorry.
Well, and let me say this in the way I heard too. And there's a couple comments I want to hit before we end. But you know what we like to do here at Real News. We always try and find silver linings and all this stuff. Okay. Kevin Roos over at the New York Times. I'm telling you, man. If Trump knows how to do anything, he can turn Democrats into Republicans like that, just like as quick as right. This is Kevin Roos over at the New York Times. Kevin Roos says, the truth, of course, is that tech platforms have been controlling our information diet for years. Well, okay. Whether we realize it or not, their decisions were often buried in obscure, quote, community standards, updates, or hidden in tweaks to the black box algorithms that govern which posts users see. But make no mistake, these apps have never been neutral, hands-off conduits for news of information. What's happening now is simply that as these companies move to rid their platforms of bad behavior, as is their right, their influence is being made more visible. Rather than letting their algorithms run amok, which is an editorial choice in and of itself, they're making high-stakes decisions about flammable political misinformation in public view, with human decision-makers who can be debated and held accountable for their choices. That's a positive step for transparency and accountability. And I'll tell you one thing, man. If Trump has a superpower, today's superpower is turning Democrats into free market entrepreneurs. I mean, I have never seen more leftists in my life come out and under the guise of free market capitalism. I saw communists yesterday, outright self-proclaimed communists yesterday, making arguments that what Twitter and Facebook are doing is totally right because they are a private entity. I'm telling y'all, dude, part of me is laughing about this because it's so disingenuous. And the other part of me wants to bring this up because that is my genuine belief. But I back it up with continuity and consistency and genuine appeal to logic. Do not take for a second that what these people are doing is at all legitimate, because it's not legitimate. Read through what they're doing. Read through this nonsense. Read through this trash. Hey, by the way, on the way out of the program here, it's 10:18. Real news, real friends. This is what we do. A few of y'all left here. We went way long this morning. There's a lot of stuff to talk about this morning. I want to end with what we started with today, though. All right. If you know a Dianne Feinstein in your life and you so happen to think that you're Lindsey Graham, go give Dianne Feinstein a hug, man. Give her a hug, reach across the aisle, understand that we can stop.
She's probably a Democrat, though, so ask for consent.
No, it's okay, sure, yeah. Valid. We can stop these cognitive distortions if we hit it at the cure, at the cause. The cure itself is actual love, positivity. You can have disagreements. Disagreements are important. That's what grows you as a human being. Nuance to the answer, the real answer, similar in the nuance. But hug a Dianne Feinstein today. That's all I'm saying, man. Love y'all for real. We'll see you on Monday. Have a good one.